Test, test. Yeah.
Hey, good evening. I'd like to call the Special Board of Trustees meeting to order. Before we get into anything, a couple of firsts to recognize today. So we have our new Director of Education, Annalisa, celebrating her first meeting today. So congratulations and welcome. And we also have our new Superintendent, Patrick Eby. So congratulations. And then I would like to officially welcome our students as well, Rebecca Gerlianto and Jace Crisco. So thank you very much. Moving now to the opening prayer and memorials, turn it over to Trustee Guerin.
So in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, a prayer for a new school year. Gracious God, as the summer begins to fade, new possibilities lie on the horizon. Bless all of those who are beginning or returning to their roles as teachers and catechists, as well as those who lead and support them in their efforts. May this school year be a time of grace and potential as they teach, share, and challenge others to grow in faith, knowledge, and wisdom. Bless children and youth, along with their parents, as they begin a new school year. May their minds be open to learning and to the wonder of discovery and insight. Be with us all as we embark on this new year. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son.
Thank you very much. Moving to our territorial acknowledgement. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather today is the land traditionally cared for by the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Nutra people. Also like to acknowledge the enduring presence and deep traditional knowledge, laws, and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today. Okay, moving on to the approval of the agenda. Can I get a mover of the agenda? Okay, Trustee Sikora and Trustee Stanley. Do we have consensus? Okay, thank you. Declaration of pecuniary interest. Do we have any from the current meeting or a previous public or in-camera meeting? Okay, seeing none. Moving to 1.5 items for action. So looking for an approval of the items for action arising from the in-camera meeting of Monday, September 8th regarding HRS matters. Can I get a mover of that? Okay, oh, Trustee Weather, and I think I saw Trustee Sikora. Okay, do we have consensus? Okay, thank you very much. With that, this is a short meeting, so I'm going to move right to 15.1, confirm decisions made tonight.
It was moved by Trustee Sikora and seconded by Trustee Stanley that the agenda for Monday, September 8th, 2025 be now approved, carried by consensus. It was moved by Trustee Weiler and seconded by Trustee Sikora that the items for action arising from the in-camera meeting of Monday, September 8th, 2025 regarding HRS matters be now approved, carried by consensus.
Thank you very much. And the closing prayer will be deferred to the committee of the whole. So now moving to motion to adjourn. Could I get a mover of that? Trustee Francis, the seconder. Joe, Trustee Stanley, thank you. Okay, we have consensus. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'd like to call to order the committee of the whole meeting. As mentioned, we've already done the opening prayer and memorials, and we've also done the territory acknowledgement. So moving to 1.3, approval of the agenda. Can I get a mover of the agenda? Okay, trustee Weiler, the seconder. Trustee Sikora, do we have consensus? Okay, thank you very much. Declaration of pecuniary interest, do we have any from the current meeting or from a previous public or in-camera meeting? Okay, seeing none. Moving on then to 3.1.1, Committee of the Whole minutes. I am looking for an approval. Do I get mover of that motion? Trustee Sikora and trustee Francis. Do we have consensus? Okay, thank you very much. Moving now to item 5, advice from the CEO, 5.1 MYSP update.
For you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much and good evening, everyone. It's nice to see everyone here and around the table. We've had a very ambitious and very exciting start to our school year, but tonight we're going to jump right into a little bit of an update with our multi-year strategic plan. As you know, we left in the spring just after the full consultation with our staff, students, and stakeholders. So we have Josh Fullen here this evening from Maximum City. He's going to be providing the outcome of that consultation and also the draft recommendations and our path moving forward. Josh, welcome.
Thank you to the director and good evening, everyone. The director has accurately described my job this evening. I'm going to do two things. I'm going to share the results of the consultation program, which is sort of the first half of our presentation. And then importantly, I would like to present some draft recommendations for the new MYSP that are based on the consultation record and other sources of evidence. In September is a very auspicious time to have this meeting and to do this type of planning, this system level planning. The last time I was in this room was on May 12th, and we were able to share some of the emerging themes of the consultation record, and we had a discussion around that. Tonight, I can share the full analysis along with the recommendations that follow. So thank you very much for the audience. The agenda is as follows. We have about an hour together. We'll go through the development timeline, talk about those consultation results, present the draft recommendations, and then we do have a couple of discussion questions for you to work on in groups as well. And I do ask, I'm sure there will be questions. I hope there will be questions. I do ask that you hold those till the discussion period because I anticipate answering some of them along the way, and then happy to entertain others when we get there. So these are the 4 phases of strategic plan development that the ministry recommends and that we have adopted for this process as well. And we're just rounding off the third phase and entering the 4th phase. So we're really at the point where we've run a lot of this race and maybe we're approaching the last mile. So we're really not looking to undo all the good work that's been done up to this point. We're looking to make it better and refine it. In these meetings, the leadership in this room always make the plans better and stronger at this point in the development process. A little note about the roles. I suspect we shared these slides back when we started this process, but it's always good to go back to the beginning at the end. The role of Maximum City is to support the board as a neutral facilitator and a critical friend. Ultimately, what we want you to do, rather than make decisions for you, is enable the board to make decisions that are educationally defensible, operationally measurable, and informed by community consultation. So that is the goal of our process. Community plays a very important role in the development of multi-year strategic plans. They really hold the knowledge and the experience to make the plans real and authentic. If you don't get sort of community perspectives in the plan, they're really just words on a paper, and you have less of a chance of operationalizing them well if they're not informed by the lived experience of your staff, your students, your parents, your clergy, and your community. And the ministry also directs boards to consult communities in the creation of these plans. A note about the role of the folks in this room and other senior staff. It really is a leadership opportunity, one of the most important responsibilities, particularly for trustees. It is a chance for shared purpose and jointly determined improvement. It is not a consensus building process. It's not about everyone agreeing on every single word that goes into the plan. It is a point about joint determination. And it's not really about perfection either. It's about getting to that place where you have shared purpose and joint determination. Note about the trustee role versus the operations role here. One of the phrases I've heard in the past about trustees is noses in, fingers out. That's one way of describing it. But another way of describing it is the words on the screens here, is that trustees are responsible for overseeing the overall direction of the school board. So really the strategic priorities are the responsibility of the trustees, kind of the what and the why, and the how is the responsibility of staff. So how does it get operationalized? How does it get tracked? How do we know we are improving? That would land under the operations role. Talked about this at the outset a little bit. So it's not just the consultation results that inform the new draft recommendations. It's various sources of evidence, and they all sort of go into the funnel to produce your renewed plan. Tonight, there's a bit of a focus on the consultation results because we haven't had a chance to share them back to you yet. But all of these other things, like other district level plans, other school improvement plans, other policies, other ministry directives, some of which you'll see more of tonight, and of course, your leadership as well. In terms of who we listen to, and listening being the operative word there, we heard, we collected more than 5,300 engagements across your community, which is a very robust number. Having done this work, I just lost, there we go. Having done this work in small, mid-size, and large districts across Ontario, this is a very robust number and positions the consultation data to be quite rigorous and defensible. You'll see there the breakdown of the participants. You'll learn a little bit more about that in a moment. But if you were wondering how many engagements that we collected through this process, it was over 5,000, and those are the specifics around that. We did do some reporting with the working group over the summer. So there were essentially two reports that we produced. One was a consultation report that focused on the survey results, the facilitated sessions with this group here and with other board committees. And then there was a second report that was called the Future Skills Report, which was a student activity to sort of engage students in their classrooms around what skills they are already developing as part of their school experience, and what skills they need more support with. So those are the two reports. A little bit about our methodology. We use just pretty standard qualitative coding to get themes from the qualitative data. And it's just a process that makes meaning out of large qualitative data sets. So you can imagine with 5,000 engagements, we had over 10,000 comments to analyze. And our staff went through those through this process of coding and developed themes. And these were the 12 themes. You saw a slightly different version of this in May that we developed from that coding process. And then when we went back and sort of distilled the essence of the themes, these were the 5 key themes. And I'll read these out for you now because these are the ones that inform the plan or the draft recommendations of the new plan: belonging and well-being, Catholic education and faith, staff support and growth, student support, learning and future readiness. So those are the 5 key themes, really the crystallization of those 10,000 plus comments could be grouped in those 5 themes. And I'm going to spend a few slides talking about each of the themes because these are important. So in our report, there are detailed summaries of these themes that are pages long. Tonight, I'm just sharing a couple of bullet points for each one. And I think these are worth sort of saying out loud and hearing together. And of course, the report is there for those who want to dig a little deeper on these. So for belonging and well-being, many comments across participant groups affirmed school as a vital space for social emotional growth, happiness, friendship, and belonging in tandem with academics. And I think that those last 3 words or 4 words are very important in tandem with academics. The fact that the sort of the well-being piece and the belonging and the social emotional growth are tied to the academic journey and growth as well. And those things are interdependent. Catholic education and faith, many parent guardian comments prioritized Catholic faith as essential to the board's identity and see it really as inseparable from its academic mission. So the faith mission and the academic mission are inseparable in that sort of collection of comments. Learning and future readiness, and there's that term future readiness is intentionally in the title of this one because it was something we've heard so often in the comments. Many staff and parent guardian comments prioritize strong academics, high standards for all learners, and called for more support for diverse learners and more challenges for high achievers. So there was a sense in this group of comments that quality of program, high standards, high expectations for all learners, that was a point of an area of strength of the board, and that was something to be leveraged going forward in the new plan. Staff support and growth. Many comments, staff comments indicated that a positive collaborative work environment with trust, connected autonomy, and support from school and system leadership was essential to their work experience and another organizational strength to be leveraged going forward. And student support and you know, at one point we had grouped these two together, staff support and growth and student support and growth. Because I think you could see that they are a natural fit, but there were so many distinct comments in each category that ultimately we separated these. And under the student support theme, many staff and parent guardian comments expressed concerns about increased student challenges, such as reduced focus, reduced engagement and resilience, reduced problem solving skills without matching increases in support, particularly for students with special or high needs. And this was something that came across very clearly in the consultation record, is that students are bringing more and more challenges to the classroom and to school communities, and that the matching supports are needed to meet that increase in challenges. So those are the 5 summaries. I'm going to do a very, very quick summary of the future skills student activity, and then I will show you the draft recommendations for the new plan. So as I said, the future skills student activity was, the goal of it was to collect and amplify student voice by linking their learning to strategic directions in the new plan. And essentially what we did is we asked 3 questions of students. One was, what skills are you already developing in school? What skills do you need more support with? And how can your school experience best support you to develop those untapped skills? And this activity was, we designed it with the help of the educational consultants, and then it was administered across about 60 classrooms, K to 12. We had a different sort of activity for each of the cohorts, K to 3, 4 to 8, and 9 to 12. And then we collected the results of that process, and here are some of the key findings. Many students reported that they are already developing skills in core literacy and numeracy, as well as data and technology. That was one of the skill categories that we heard frequently that students are developing, along with problem solving. And that was particularly in the older cohort, 4 to 12. Students in that same cohort identified opportunities for more explicit development of the skills listed there. Many of those skills are what are sometimes referred to as global competencies. In the Ontario curriculum, they're called transferable skills. And they are sort of the big, broad global competencies like collaboration, critical thinking, communication, and citizenship that you see there. So that's the future skills report, and moving on to the draft recommendations. And you'll see a bit of our process in this next series of slides. And just a couple of warnings or caveats, maybe it's a better way of framing them. Nothing is sort of designed at this point. So what you see are conceptual representations. It's all draft language. And another really important thing to consider when you see strategic priorities and objectives is they are not, the order is not important. These are mutually reinforcing elements in an ecosystem. So if something appears here and something appears here and something appears here, what matters is the relationship, the interdependence between them, not necessarily where they're placed. So just a word of caution about interpreting the visuals of the screens too much. So when we get to this stage, we always like to go back and remind ourselves of this. When you're getting down to sort of putting pen to paper for a strat plan, you really want to focus on a small number of ambitious goals that reflect the priorities in the consultation record, that are interdependent and mutually reinforcing, and can be expressed in plain language and ultimately operationalized by staff. So there should be no sort of jargon in the strat plan strategic priorities and objectives if avoidable. And that's something that your leadership will help us achieve, I'm sure. And something the working group has already helped tremendously with is just getting the language right. So when we took those 5 themes, we reminded ourselves that we really wanted to focus on a small number of ambitious goals. This was our first pass. So we had 3 strategic pillars, one called learning and future readiness, one called belonging and well-being, another called faith and community. Again, that conceptual diagram represents that they are interdependent and mutually reinforcing. And then when we went back to the consultation record and your other plans, including your pastoral plan, we looked for alignment in language to develop this series of strategic objectives. So there are 5 strategic objectives that nest under each of these priorities. So the top sort of the categories are pillars or priorities. You want a small number of those. We have 3. And then the bullet points are what are called strategic objectives. Those are more operational in nature. You don't want too many of those either, but this is sort of the draft set that we've come up with. And I'm going to speed ahead. You'll see this language again in a moment and have a chance to discuss and ask questions on it. And we really, we wanted to simplify and crystallize what those 3 pillars represented. And we came up with these 3 words instead of the 7 or 8 words that you saw on the first pass. And then I've already reminded you of this, that the priorities and objectives are part of an ecosystem. And then we sort of took another pass at the categories and the nesting and came up with these 3 pillars and these 15 strategic objectives. In each of these, if you have questions about any of the words, we can certainly speak to them. We spent a lot of time sort of crafting the language and making sure it matches those evidence sources that I described. But it's, there's still work to be done for sure. And you'll see this slide again in a moment. But I wanted to show you the previous plan or the current plan and talk about some of the overlap and some of the renewal that's taken place. So in terms of similarities between the sort of the current MYSP and the proposed or the draft recommendations for the renewed MYSP, we have 3 priorities or pillars. Two of them in each of the representations are focused on belonging and believing. So that, that hasn't changed much. The third priority has changed a little bit. It has been renewed, and there's more of a focus on learning. And I think we would be doing you a disservice if the word learning was not in your plan this time, because there was so much said about the importance of learning and the core business of the board being program, being teaching and learning, and the quality of that program, which was something to take pride in and continue to grow and develop. So that's where the third pillar or priority has changed. Many of the strategic objectives, so those are the bullet points that nest under the pillars, cover similar topics. And this is neither surprising or unwanted, I would say, in a process like this. You want to sort of test your strategic objectives in a renewal process, but that doesn't mean you throw everything out and start over. It's about renewing and updating that language. So much of the language has been updated to be made more precise. So instead of using the word partners, which was in the previous plan, we've used the word co-creator, which also matches a lot of good ministry language. We've transposed the word high expectations for potential, and we've used this word pathways instead of success. The success was the word in the previous plan. We heard the word multiple pathways a lot in the consultation record. So again, we've renewed that. There is a greater emphasis in the new plan on future readiness. Again, this was something that came across very clearly in the consultation record. Both students, parents, and staff, really all groups, spoke to the importance of future readiness, given sort of the complexity, the uncertainty of the world that students are entering and will enter. And that idea of preparing them with future ready skills, those transferable skills that I mentioned earlier, it's always been a part of education, transforming learning into practice. That's what skill development is. It's always been important, but its importance has amplified because of the world we live in, and that's what we heard from folks, and that's why that language is there. And in the new plan, there's a greater integration of the objectives. So in the old one, if you look at it, you'll see students, staff, parents, and families. This time, really all of the objectives are focused on students and staff and are interdependent, and the ones that are explicitly for families or community are indicated in that way. And then I appreciate your patience on this, and this is my last couple of slides before I turn it over to you folks. We do want to make sure that we're following, good policy and the directives that the ministry has updated and follows as well. So we always go back and look at sort of recent directives, and the Bill 98, the Better Schools and Student Outcomes Act from a couple summers ago, speaks to this. As outlined in the Education Act, school boards are expected to engage with students, staff, communities, and parents, and to use quantitative and qualitative data to develop multi-year plans that are responsive to local needs. School boards are required to adopt provincial priorities of achievement of learning outcomes, preparation for future success, student engagement, well-being into their multi-year plans. All of those things are part of the draft recommendations quite strongly, I would say. I mean, those are your pillars and your priorities. And there's also, this note that is also important to consider for a Catholic board. School boards have the flexibility to take into account local needs and perspectives, including Catholic needs when developing plans to address those provincial priorities. Also, and I know this isn't the greatest visual here, but we also want to think about how the ministry sets up program planning considerations. And the reason I've included this slide up here is if you look on the left, you'll see that many of those things, if you can read that, are the things that are described in the multi-year strategic plan draft recommendations. So things like communication, that's in there as well. Experiential learning, you'll see that. Pathways is part of it. Student well-being and mental health. All of those program planning considerations are now part of the draft recommendations as well. And I think this is my last slide before I set up the discussion and take some questions. A little checklist for us to think about. Are the priorities and the objectives reflective of a process led by trustees? Are they loyal to the data? Are they aligned with system level and provincial priorities? Are they true to Waterloo Catholic District School Board? So this must be your plan, not a plan for another board. And are they student centered? And I think before I introduce these questions, I'll just pause for a moment. These are the two questions we want to ask you in groups, and we'll break out in a moment. But I think I'll pause for a moment because that was a lot of information, and let folks ask questions before we break into groups to answer these two questions specifically. So thank you very much, and happy to take your questions.
Are there any questions from trustees? Trustee Sikora.
Thank you. You'd mentioned that you'd consulted about 1,300 students in like 60 different classes. How were those chosen?
Yes, appreciate the question. So for the future skills activity, it was about 1,300 students from K to 12. There was a big chunk in 4 to 8 and another fairly large chunk in 9 to 12, and then a smaller chunk in K to 3. And we relied on the educational consultants and the research coordinator at the time to help us identify schools that were part of the NPDL network, which is the New Pedagogies for Deep Learning, because they had already done some similar initiatives, as well as getting a good cross-section of schools. So a representative sample so that you would get sort of the right balance of perspectives in that activity. As well as not asking schools that were doing, you know, another initiative at the same time. So you weren't burdening, you know, schools with multiple things to do at a very busy time of the year, which was the month of May. So there were multiple criteria to select the schools, but it was mostly work of staff, not consultants, who did that.
Trustee Weiler.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I was curious. I know that this year we're obviously embarking with our faith into a new 3-year pastoral plan as well. And so I was really interested if you've had a chance through your work to kind of layer that through some of the findings to see how they interconnect.
Yeah, appreciate the question. There is very good interconnection between the draft recommendations and your pastoral plan. So listen, engage, serve. Those are the 3 themes, which I think they work very nicely. So, you know, listening leads to more understanding and more engagement. Engagement leads to more serving, more service. So if you look at the 5th bullet point under faith, here you see listen and serve in education and faith, which aligns perfectly with your pastoral plan. And you'll see the word engage twice as well. So one of the things we always want to do is see a clear line of coherence from your pastoral plan, your strategic plan, the other sort of system level and school level plans. And we have done that. I think there's really good sort of opportunities for the pastoral plan and this strategic plan to be mutually reinforcing and serve each other. In fact, you know, making them the same length might be a useful consideration. These strategic plans, the ministry suggests anywhere between 3 to 5 years. We typically recommend that 3 years is too short of a period, so 4 or 5 years would be a good length, and you could align that with your pastoral plan as well if that were something the board and staff would like to entertain. Yeah, you're welcome.
Trustee Guerin.
Chair, thank you very much. I really like that the pillars that you have established. I guess my question is like around the word faith versus the word learning and belonging, like different kind of nouns in that way. Is that intentional? Was believing sort of?
It's a really good question, and you've picked up on something that I think we wrestled with quite a bit. So learning, believing, belonging has a nicer rhythm and cadence to it. And certainly the work we've done in other Catholic boards, we've often seen the word believing appear as a pillar. So you would be in very good company if that word were believing. The reason the word is faith is because of simply the number of times we heard that word in the consultation record. And I think, Todd, you would affirm this strongly. Todd did a lot of the analysis. If you did a control F for the word faith in your data set, it would come up you know, hundreds of times. So again, when you think of our checklist being true to the consultation data, believing works better in terms of an aesthetic or a language approach. faith is truer to the consultation record. If this group and the trustees decided that believing was much better, I think that would be defensible too, but that's why the word faith is there.
Stanley.
If you go back a couple of slides, you had a Venn diagram with the three pillars overlapping. How important is the sector in the middle where they all integrate? Do we have a single mission statement or something that integrates all three pillars into one cohesive mission statement, for example?
It's an interesting question, and I think as much as I said that order and hierarchy are not important, I think we intentionally put faith on the bottom here as a foundational element. But remember, this is a conceptual diagram. And when you get to the point where you want to produce this on a page, it can look something like this, it can look something like this, or we can show you examples of other plans from other districts, both ones we've worked on and haven't, that are what we think are good visual representations. In terms of the mission and vision, we were careful to go back and look at yours. In fact, I have them on slides somewhere in this deck if we need to look at them tonight, and make sure that the language was, again, like we did with the pastoral plan, to make sure there was consistency and coherence with the mission and the vision. So how you want to sort of produce that visually or in a document, I think is part of the next steps of the process. It should fit, on a page or two, the public facing plan. It should be digestible. Someone should be able to pick it up and say, I know what this board is after, know how they are going to pursue it, and I know who they are. Sort of, that's what it should tell you when you look at it. But in terms of the visual representation, I think there's work to be done there after both tonight and after tonight.
Trustee Weiler.
Through you, Chair. I was curious, you talked about some of the similarities between our previous MYSP and this one, and the areas that were really reinforced. I often find you can learn as much of what was different.
Yep.
So maybe some key themes that really didn't come through in this particular consultation that was quite different, perhaps, than our previous MYSP.
Yeah, I can't speak to the development of your current MYSP, but in terms of the differences in the content, I think they're outlined here. I mean, I think the differences are most telling and most informative by the things that were emphasized by people. So the ideas of future readiness for students, the idea that you really need to spend time intentionally building skills that are not just good for the classroom or the world outside the classroom today, but can really be transferred to different contexts in different situations. The idea that there is a really strong program in Waterloo Catholic, a really strong teaching and learning program and academic program that is worth celebrating and leveraging as a strength. And the sense of professional pride that the staff have, the idea that, and you'll see an objective that relates to this, the idea that the board is leaders across portfolios, and that is something to pursue to help transform learning. You can be leaders across different portfolios. And the idea of that the board is very strong in data and evidence bases is another thing that came out strongly in the current consultation program that is telling. Looking over to you, if you want to add anything. Am I answering? How am I doing on answering your question? Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to what came up in the last development process, but yeah. So
I would echo what Todd Harrison from Maximum City. I would echo what Josh said. Certainly, to say also that the notion of future readiness is something that we are hearing in our work across school boards. That it's really coming through, and that's something that is being said, but notably by parents, by students, and by staff. It's a resounding chorus. And that was, like Josh mentioned, the biggest thing that didn't appear so much in the last plan is that notion of preparedness and future readiness.
Yeah, and we haven't heard that, and we've done maybe a dozen of these. We haven't heard that to the extent that we heard it this time. So it's a chance to sort of put your mark on a plan and say, we are going after this because the moment for it is now. Yeah.
Do we have a concrete definition of future readiness? Like what's the time horizon that people mean by that exactly?
We do have the ministry's language around it. It's in our report, and I can pull it up after we break up, and it's pretty useful. You're right. You want to know what these things are and what they mean. And the ministry has been very good about they've identified 7 skill categories, and I can show those in a moment after we break apart. And they've given a really good definition of what future skills are. And I think it's good that you've asked that because it's an opportunity for us to show that. I don't have it in this deck, I don't think, but certainly it's in the report. So I'll pull it up when we do the breakout and we can have a look. Yeah, and it's not, I will just, sorry, one final thought on that. I mean, as much as the ministry is a good source for these things, when we did that activity with students, we actually showed them lists from the ministry, from Forbes magazine, from OECD, from New Pedagogies for Deep Learning, from Maximum City. So all of many organizations and groups have these lists and sort of have conceptualized future ready skills. So it's good for students to see kind of the lists and how they what the overlap is and how they triangulate. And we can share, we'll put this up on a slide when you folks get working on your questions, and you can see the definition.
Sikora.
Madam Chair, you'd mentioned that you tend to target 3 or 4 year plans. You think that's optimal. From what you've received from your consultations, how difficult was it? Obvious? Did 3 or 4 seem more obvious, I guess?
Well, I would say the establishing the 5 themes, the 5 key themes was not difficult at all. So if you go back to, sorry for the whiplash here. So getting from these 12, this was a simple coding process that was very kind of neutral and dispassionate, reading and coding. Getting to these 5 themes was not difficult at all because these 5 were so clearly more resonant and more frequently mentioned by folks that it was easy to get to these 5 if you want to talk about easy and hard. But then getting to these 3 and then again to these 3, I think required some difficult thinking. But that's good. And they could have been, we could have chosen other pillars, but I think these 3 are the most reflective of the data and those other sources that we looked at. So
I had a question. So just kind of building on that, I'm not quite sure. I had a similar question just in terms of like length of time of the MYSP and what you might have seen with other organizations. Like what is more typical? Because to me, our 3 years seemed a bit, on the short side.
yeah, thank you for the question, Chair. Agreed. If you do the process rigorously, which I'm speaking from a position of bias, but I think we have done. You don't need to do this every 3 years because you can also see that there is overlap in the existing plan and the new plan. So we would recommend a term of 4 or 5 years, and that is more typical in terms of what boards are adopting these days. Unless the only time we advise people to do shorter strat plans, whether it's in a school board or a municipal division or a company, is when they know there's going to be radical change in the next 18 months. So if you know that, things are going to be completely different in your organization in 18 months, you might say, okay, we're going to do a short plan of 3 years and revisit it after the change happens to make sure the plan still fits who we are and our vision and values, and those important things. But, you know, given the, I mean, you could make the argument that change is a foot no matter what in this world. But given the context in the province, I would say 4 or 5 years would be appropriate.
Are there any other questions from trustees? Okay, thank you very
Moving on,
much.
it's fine. I don't see a clock here. But, 6:48. Okay, thank you. So what we would like to do now is just, and appreciate all the questions, and you can also add questions to the sheet that you're about to get. We'd just like to get kind of your perspectives and comments on the two things we've shared. So there are really just two questions. We have some pre-organized groups that you can get into in a moment. The first question, and we may have answered many of these already, so if you breeze through this, that's fine. What questions and comments do you have about the development and consultation process and the results? So those are the themes, what we heard and what we presented back in terms of the 12 themes and the 5 key themes. Do you have any comments on that? And importantly, and I'd say this is, if you're going to do the hard thinking tonight, this is where to do it. What questions and comments do you have about the draft MYSP recommendations? And those are, pardon me, and I will leave this up on the screen when we get into our groups. That's these things here. And remember, at this point, it's not about sort of blowing it up and starting it again. It's about getting the language right, making sure that things are educationally defensible, operationally possible. That's a staff question, that they reflect priorities that you hear in your community for trustees. And that this language, that each of the leaders in this room can own this language, right? If there's a word that, you know, is not sitting right with you, you need to sort of think about how we can update that language. And the goal is not consensus. You don't have to sort of have a perfect plan. You have to have a very good plan. So that's what that second question is about. And that's really I would say the meat of it. And we have, as in the past, we have some materials for you to write on. And we've got these groups. So 5 groups, and we'll give one of these to each group, or maybe 2, one for note taking, one for handing back. And please write on these. And if there's time, we'll do a bit of a share in 15 or 20 minutes. Okay, so once you're in those groups, we will hand out these sheets, and Todd and I will circulate as well to answer any questions. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sheesh. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So you want to? Already got it. Yeah. Hello. Sure. Yep. Let me turn. Sorry to interrupt, folks. I'm going to ask if you're not on the back on question 2 that you immediately go there and take the next 5 minutes to round off any comments. How much time do we have left? About 5 minutes. Well, that's perfect. So 5 minutes to round it off. And if there is time for a bit of share and discussion, we'll do that. But please turn to the back page. And I am also, sorry, where is it? There. So, Trustee Stanley, you're going to answer your question. Just you wait. I swear it's covered. I promise. There we go. So that's from the ministry's transferable skills, and many other institutions and organizations have similar. The only thing we don't have yet, though, is like I said, future. What that mean? 2 years, 5 years, 50 years. I don't know. It's a very, very good question.
Yeah, and it's prepared for the next 20 years of taking right. So I will give you the money.
That's the ambition. That is your in this region. I mean, so here, UDP is
Number 7 is interesting.
forward to yes. Well, see, the marks.
That's right. So the number 7 is the suspicion. I'd say. Can we use some phrasing in terms of fact that
Well, I don't even, I don't think I think there's a it's just communicating versus.
Yeah.
I like the concept. Take a look at this. Have you solved the crack code? Instruction. Learning is Learning's good. Yeah. Put the outside back. Yes. Well, that makes more.
I still think that's. I started. Yes, I was getting. That's what I was trying to get.
I think that is a really good thing to consider. Is to have faith maybe as a central foundational component, and then work together to. Yeah. Exactly. I would say it's not, and each of the things should be, that's why I have a problem with this call. It should really just be one big, sort of, bucket of stuff, and each thing relies on each other, right? So you can't have one excelling and one declining, because then it sort of averages out. They all have to be kind of equal. The idea of growing or becoming is certainly part of a lot of the consultation, but it's also strongly in the custom. The idea that you're on campus, right, that faith development.
Someone might ask a question. What is this directed at our institution becoming the best for the student or
Yeah, that's unheard of along the one. And Paul, to the pastoral plan, and to comment, listen and serve it as education and data. I think that captures strongly the spirit of the pastoral plan. The only word that's missing there is maybe engage, but you have engaged in the other plans. So is it a question of adding another pillar or priority to keep serving, or making that more explicit than serving? I would recommend something that is more overlapping. That's sort of the next step. You gotta get the language right, category.
Initials. COW. Thought of that? I'm not gonna be the one to call you.
There's another idea. What if you replace faith with sermon? And didn't change, because you have the word faith multiple times under it.
Yeah,
And you have learning, serving.
learning, serving, belonging.
Because then you don't create another pillar unnecessarily. Correct. And then you see the word faith still appears twice under. Three times. There you go.
All right, I can live with that.
So we're happy to wrap up and collect this. Yeah. Understood.
Thank you.
Yes. Yep. Hi, folks. Just as if I could if you can round off your conversations. I know there were some good ones because I participated in them, and I just want to share a couple of last steps before I say good evening. We will collect the information that you've written down, take it back, and continue to meet with the working group to refine what you see in front of you tonight, and we will return when you will have us back. If it's in October, then it will be that date in October with a revised version to show you how this feedback was incorporated. In terms of the trajectory, the next step after that would be to come up with a final version of the plan to develop a monitoring methodology with the research department, research lead, and then take it to a vote at board level. So those are the next steps. And I want to thank you for your participation tonight. Thank you very much.
Okay, so with the conclusion of 5.1, we're going to move into our linkages and pastoral. And so with that, we can bid good evening to the superintendents. Thank you very much. Okay, I will call on trustee Guerin, if that's okay, to provide a pastoral care update.
Thank you. We had a fantastic meeting. So we talked about the new pastoral plan, and we're going to actually get in contact with our spiritual animator to maybe speak to us as a group about how that came to be and what they foresee in that. I've got an initiative to actually send an invitation by email and or letter to all the parish priests, deacons, and clergy across Waterloo region. So we looked at a draft of that, and it'd be nice to personalize it if you're comfortable letting me know what parishes you belong, and I can say this person's a member of your congregation, and invite them to come to join us for a meal and be part of that. Strategically, that's really helping to build more board and parish connection. That's one of the objectives of our group. And we talked about there is on Thursday, October 9th, the dinner with the trustees, senior staff, and the guest speaker for the Spiritual Development Day. We may try to see if we can make that into our spiritual retreat, since people will be together. Maybe there's something a little bit extra that we'll do just as trustees after the fact. So if people are available and open to that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll call on trustee Sikora for the linkages.
Thank you. So we actually just went through the criteria for that we're going to try to use are issuing letters of congratulations for certain things. We've had it, it's been very vague in the past, we tried to formalize it a little bit more. Just went over some of the recent activities by trustees, Links for Learning, trustee Dorothy Masters and I were able to volunteer for that. The new school openings, St. Patrick and Holy Trinity, and a reminder to fill in the linkages, activities, attendance. I'll be sending out the link again to that in case people have forgotten that. Just some of the upcoming activities, several of them are on our agenda, so I'm not going to go over them. And also we're looking at reviewing our terms of reference, and we're actually I'm going to be trying to take an initiative to do it across the board because all of our committees are supposed to be done annually. We've managed to gather several of them, terms of reference, but a few may be missing, and we're just going to try to standardize a little bit how we're approaching that. So, and I think that was basically what we covered during our linkages today.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to move on to 8.1, just a reminder to review the OXTA communications as they come up. There's a link that was provided in the agenda. And moving then to 8.2, trustee work plan for September. So we've already had the trustee orientation, the first CIAC meeting, the CPIC meeting is coming up. I'm not going to go through and read everything. I don't think I have anything more to add on that. Thank you for sharing that. Any questions or comments? Okay, moving on then to 13 announcements. So again, a lot of that was duplicated on the trustee work plan. We do have our OXTA regional meeting coming up, so Stephanie had issued a deadline for that for trustees to get back on that. Moving to 14.1, Board of Trustees meeting, our first board meeting coming up on September 22nd. You can see in your agenda items listed there for that meeting. I'm going to move to 15.1 to confirm decisions tonight.
It was moved by trustee Weiler and seconded by trustee Sikora that the agenda for Monday, September 8th, 2025 be now approved, carried by consensus. It was moved by trustee Sikora and seconded by trustee Francis that the consent agenda Board of Trustees and the recommendations contained therein be now approved, carried by consensus.
Thank you very much. Move to 16.1 then, our closing prayer. O risen Lord, you've entrusted us with the responsibility to help form a new generation of disciples and apostles through the gift of our Catholic schools. As disciples of Christ, may we educate and nurture hope in all learners to realize their full potential to transform God's world. May our Catholic schools truly be at the heart of the community, fostering success for each by providing a place for all. May we and all whom we lead be discerning believers formed in the Catholic faith community, effective communicators, reflective and creative thinkers, self-directed, responsible lifelong learners, collaborative contributors, caring family members, and responsible citizens. Grant us the wisdom of your Spirit so that we might always be faithful to our responsibilities. We make this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen. And I now move to a motion to adjourn. Can I get a mover of that? Trustee Weiler and Trustee Stanley. Do we have consensus? Okay, thank you very much.